What up, roomies? Tonight's episode is going to take us on one of the most intense and powerful life journeys we've ever had on Neighbors. Our guest has survived childhood trauma, addiction, multiple suicide attempts, and even a near-death experience. Yet somehow comes out on the other side with a mission to help people heal and rediscover happiness. Joining us today is a speaker, entrepreneur, a creator of what he calls equations of life and abundance happiness, David Thayne Martin, also known as the Butterfly Man.
The butterfly
Dan,
man
welcome to Neighbors.
right there. See it?
Metamorphosis,
right.
baby.
3 on this arm, 1 over my heart, 1 on my back. I got 5 of them on me.
Nice,
Plus, this is
nice.
a butterfly right here.
Oh, I
This
thought
is
that was
the-
a lucky charm. I thought that was a lucky charm.
No, it's actually a butterfly, and it's the logo of my company.
Nice. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
see the logo of the company.
Yeah, see that? It's pure
Yeah.
love. Yep, that's my logo in diamond. Anyways.
You already know. Make sure to go check out the Butterfly Man.
People have actually asked me to buy this. And so I'm going to start selling on my website, like
Do it.
eventually.
Do it because it represents so much. It represents change. It represents positivity, and
Dude.
when it's coming from you, and I literally, we just sat down maybe 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, and I can already say you're one awesome guy because you're just vibrant. The energy, coming off of you, and you're like, yeah, I want to be positive. I want to help people, and
Amen.
I know you've been through a lot. Like I was reading, I did my research, and I read, and the shit. And I curse all the time. I try to minimize it here, but I'm gonna say the shit you've been through, bro.
Yeah.
I swear to Jesus Christ, if you were to write a book, just write exactly what happened, it would be a New York Times bestseller year round, straight up. People would think it's fiction. People would think it's fucking fiction. It's not.
I know. It's not. And I've got press clippings and all kinds of things. It's like, yeah, no, I've lived a peculiar life for sure. But through all of my shit came an immense amount of learning. Okay, because the ugliest things that happen to us in our lives are actually the best possible outcome. Okay, and I mean that from the sincerest place in my heart, because most of my life I showed up as a victim from what happened to me, and I saw the world from that victim perspective. So it wasn't until I healed myself, healed my heart, opened my life back up to living, that I started, being the person that I always knew I could be if I could learn how to let go of my past that plagued me. My past is what made me the victim. And most of my life, I lived as a victim, and I showed up that way. Like I was telling you, I was always kind to my family and friends. But if you were not my family and friends and I didn't know you and you were not on your A game and you messed up, I was going to be all over you. And I hated that in me. But where it came from was the ugly crap that I had to endure as a child. Like, that's the truth. I had a normal childhood like anybody else.
All I'm gonna say is this though: if you didn't go through what you went through, you would just be an average New Yorker.
I would not be the person that I am. Yeah. I love New York, by the way.
Me too.
My favorite city.
No, I was saying that joke just. Oh man, but you were saying, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. So I was just saying, like, for me, being traumatized and abused by people I went to church with is a really screwed up beginning to life, right?
Yeah.
The very people that I was supposed to be able to trust were the very people that were abusing me, and then get this, judging me for moral cleanliness. Okay.
But the one thing I don't understand, right? And this goes in all religions and all aspects, right? Like people that you put in power, I wouldn't say power, but in a position of trust. Why do you think they always want to violate that, especially when they think they could always get away with it, and then blame you for the shit they did? And it's not fair because it's usually young people that are the ones that get victimized.
That's correct. And because you got to, I started being groomed when I was about age 4 to 5. That's when it started happening. And I was being groomed by a boy in my neighborhood. that was probably being abused by the same adults. He ended up moving away, and I don't know what happened to him. But then the mistake that I made was that I sold my school was having a fundraiser for a band, and we didn't have the money for me to have the instrument, so I had to rent it. So I had to raise money to pay for the instrument that I was renting for that following school year. So we were selling honey, bottles of gourmet honey, and I sold one to a neighbor, and then I collected it from a neighbor. And when I knocked on the door, the woman wasn't home, and he lived catty corner from me. And he said, well, I got the money in the back room, follow me. And I had no reason to be afraid of him. He was an older guy, gray hair, liver spots on the hand, and I had raked their leaves before. I didn't think I had anything to be afraid of, but that's not what happened. You know, I went into the back room, that door got shut, and my life ended. My life freaking ended that day because my innocence was stolen. Everything was taken from me, and then I was put into fear because I was 8 at the time, and my little sister was 5. And being raised in the Mormon church, I was also an active Boy Scout. So I knew that being a man, being a boy, that I had a responsibility to protect my little sister. Yeah. And so when the pedophile used that as leverage, he picked the most important thing to me, which was my little sister, because I love my little sister, and I still do this day. So I allowed the abuse to continue, again, leveraging my sister. And then it got worse because the guy that lived across the street from me was in cahoots with another man in the neighborhood that lived behind me. So I don't know how pedophiles meet. I don't know how you meet pedophiles. You know, hey, are you into kids? Like, I don't know how that happens.
Like that's a crazy, like,
yeah. How is that possible?
Like, I understand. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something a little out of pocket.
Okay.
I understand that freaks find each other. You feel me?
Oh yeah, I get it.
You feel me? If you into something, you'll find the group. But that one thing is something that I just can't believe that you could find people on. Like, like,
tell me that.
What
kind of shit is that? Conversation.
Yeah, how do you have that conversation? How do you be like, hey, yeah, you're into minors? Well, the fuck?
Right.
Like, if you're in the middle of the street and somebody's just walking by and heard that, they'll be like, what the fuck?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So somehow these two knew each other. Okay. Yeah. So this is where it got ugly. The gentleman that lived behind me was the janitor at my church. So, and back then they were a paid position in the church. So he had a key, and it was a humongous building. So when he knew when the building was occupied and when it was empty, he knew which rooms could be locked and which ones could only be opened with his key. So over 6 years, the man that lived across the street and the crazy man that lived behind me, they basically ran a pedophile ring, and they abused multiple children, boys, inside the church. It happened in the church. It would happen sometimes after meetings when everybody would go home, and then one of the leaders would ask, me to stay behind or whatever, and nobody ever questioned anything. Like, that's just how it went, So they abused all of us to the point that 3 of my childhood friends have all committed suicide, and 1 died from AIDS early on before there was any kind of treatment for it. Okay, so 4 of my childhood friends were all sexually abused just like me, and 4 of them are now dead. Okay, and I attempted suicide so many times that I can't even count them. I'm going to say 4 total. Okay, 4 total times where I attempted, and that started as a kid. Like, I tried to hang myself as a child. I was not successful, but unfortunately my friend got in a lot of trouble because I kind of broke something at the house in the process of trying to hang myself, and he got in trouble for it. Well, he was also being abused. He was one of the kids, and sadly he was my best friend, and he took his life about 7 years ago. Because when you jack with children, like they did with us, it sets us on a life of massive struggles. Like,
No, no, I could only imagine, and I have so many questions. Like, what? I don't want to show your age, but what decade was this?
70s. I'm
Oh
58.
shit!
I don't mind saying.
Oh
I'm
shit!
58 years old. It was in the 70s.
Oh
So
yeah,
it
the
happened in the
70s.
early 70s, 74, 75, 76 is
Yeah,
kind of,
the 70s and 80s were rough.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 70s and 80s were rough. Um, so so none of like the adults like figured anything out or found things weird, like parents, nothing like
No. No.
that's
So
fucking
like
crazy.
in my case, here you have to understand. So that's why I ended up developing a really peculiar disorder. And it came from being abused repeatedly when I was a young boy. Okay. And that it's called dissociative identity disorder. And it used to be called multiple personality syndrome.
Yeah,
Okay. And then they changed the name and it's now called dissociative identity disorder. And it's actually a coping skill in the brain for children that are abused when they're young. And
mm,
I developed that. I developed that. So for most of my life, I lived as a multiple. Okay. So that meant that I had 10 very distinct, very different personalities that lived inside of my mind and could use my body no different than the one I'm talking to you right now.
yeah,
So I had it my most of my life. I was also diagnosed bipolar 1, severe ADHD, and then I had really ugly PTSD from being
yeah.
abused.
Of
Like
course,
you,
of course.
there's so many
There's
things.
no way in hell that you couldn't have PTSD.
No, so many things that would literally take me, like it would, like there were so many things. Like if an old man with gray hair and liver spots looked at me the wrong way, it would remind me of some asshole hurting me. And then I
Yeah,
would trigger and I'd go right back to that memory and then I'd lose my shit. And then I would split, okay? I would switch personalities and I would become somebody different because I could not handle the memory that just came back to my present mind.
yeah,
So it made life really hell for me, like hell, because I was married to a woman with children, and then I had a very demanding career, but I was also a multiple, and I hadn't even been diagnosed, which is even crazier, right? Because when you have this disorder, like I did, I had really good coping mechanisms.
yeah.
And what I mean by that is I was able to hide the fact that I would switch in the middle of a conversation and nobody would know that they were talking to somebody different.
I was just about to ask you that, like, how were you able to like? You said you had 10, right?
Yeah.
How did you
10.
have 10? How you had 10 drivers in one car and
Yeah.
nobody knew who was switching up? Like, how
Yeah.
did no one figure
Yeah.
that out? Like,
Yeah.
like that right there is wild.
Yeah.
Because you would think that because of the different personalities, there will be different mannerisms, different
There
ways of
are.
speech, maybe, and
Yes.
things of that
There
nature.
are.
So,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't, I personally, be, and I'm
Yeah.
just saying this from a point of view of somebody close to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a close friend, maybe one of your kids. You know, how don't you distinct? Well, your child that could kind of figure out how they won't be able to distinct because they see it so much, so they probably think it's normal.
Yeah.
But like a friend of yours knowing who you were and now seeing like all the switching up, like how didn't nobody catch the different mannerisms or speech patterns?
Well, so being completely vulnerable here, because I that's the only way I roll. So
Yeah,
part of my challenge was that as my personalities developed, they were different ages and they were also different orientations. Okay. So although I was married and I identify as 100% straight man today, some of the alters that lived in me, former personalities, some of those were gay.
yeah,
So I lived part of my life as a gay man. When I was operating as a gay man, I was gay. But when I was married to Joy, I was married to Joy. So
yeah,
literally they were different. Okay. So you can imagine how that worked in my marriage. It sucked. Okay. It was
yeah,
hell on her and it was hell on me, you know, because my wife was like, well, wait a minute, like, why are you wanting to be with men when you married me, but you're telling me you're not gay? And I'm like, but you have to understand, when you have this disorder, there's also some peculiar things about DID. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is there's so many variations of it. So my personalities were not co-conscious, meaning that when I switched, I had no memory of me switching, and I had no memory of who I had just been. No memory. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's just like you'll be there, black out, and come back.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I could be
That's
talking to you. Let's say I
that's
was talking to you. Okay. You
yeah.
and I are having a conversation, and you say something that triggers me.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of two things would happen. Either I would manage the trigger and be able to be okay, or I would switch. Okay. And when I switched, I would either switch and you would know it, or I would switch and you wouldn't know it.
Okay.
Because if I switched into a similar personality that was also older, you wouldn't know that I switched. But if I switched into the 8-year-old that was nonverbal, you would know.
I
So,
got you.
so as I lived my life, you know, I tried to outrun my trauma. That's what I tried. That's what most people do, and that's what I did, because I was also so ashamed by
No,
what had happened. You know,
I
because
could just
sadly,
imagine.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was, you know, and then they had they used excuse me,
You good, man. You good.
they used Polaroids. Okay,
Oh no.
yeah, they would take photographs of us
Oh no.
children with the adults abusing us. Okay, and then they would sell them to them. It was like a memento of them abusing us. Literally, I'm not joking when I say that. Then they would use the same photographs as leverage against us. They would come up to me and say, you don't want your father to see this, right? And the last thing I ever wanted was my dad to see that, to see anything, because they made me believe that I was the cause of it. Like,
Yeah.
that's how screwed up it is. You know what else is screwed up? When you do this stuff and then all the fireworks and shit go off. Like, did you do this? And then you get like thumbs up, you know.
No,
People,
I'm like,
so I'm like talking, and we're getting fucking fireworks, and I'm like, what the hell?
I'm like, what the fuck? Yo, that shit is insane.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I know that this world is fucked up,
Yeah. Well,
but
here's what's, go
but
ahead.
you, but it's hard. All right, like I know people who've been abused. I have family who's been, abused and been assaulted and whatnot. And every time they talk to me about it, and same thing with you, it's just like, how? Like, how can a person be so evil to do this to somebody? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I just personally don't get it. I know it's probably my heart, my soul, whatever it is. I just don't understand. Like, I could understand a lot. Like, I could, scale my evilness, so if you could say, right?
Sure. We all
But
can.
but that right there is just like, I just can't
Yeah.
see it. I just can't
It's a
fathom
line
it.
you can't, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
line
man.
you can't cross. Right. I get it. And and I guess that's one of the challenges, because it's a peculiar disorder, and then it's mired in shame.
Yeah.
And then that keeps you quiet, so you don't talk about it. That's why I never said anything. I didn't want anybody, one of my biggest fears was that my wife would worry that I would ever abuse my own children. Because sadly, okay, this is a true statement. Sadly, when people are abused, there is a percentage that does repeat the abuse. It's
Yeah.
between 5 and 8%. 5 and 8%. It's not 90%, which is the way the public treats it. You see? So that mere fact alone is what keeps people quiet, because
Yeah.
I never wanted to leave the house and know that a thought entered my wife's head, is it safe to leave my little girls home with my husband? Like,
Yeah.
that was so horrific for me.
Yo.
I never
Yeah.
said a word. No, I tried to outrun it. So I lived my life the best that I could. The switching would kind of come and go depending upon how much stress was in my life. The more
Yeah.
stress, the more switching. Truth. So part of my life, I didn't switch often. I didn't. But then as the trauma really started surfacing for me was in my 30s. I
Yeah.
started having nightmares in the middle of the night and they were horrific. And you have to understand that I didn't have any memory of what had happened to me. So I'm now 32 years old. I'm waking up screaming in the middle of the night because I'm being abused in my nightmares. And it's happening every night. And I don't know why. And I don't know where it's coming from. That's literally where I was in my early 30s. And so I also was in a very, very stressful situation with a career. And I
What
think
what were you doing at that time?
so I had gone to work for a guy that owned a finance company, and then we bought a bank, and I was involved. I was kind of his right hand man
No way.
as an entrepreneur, and I was making a lot of money, and I did very well. But he made a mistake. He bribed a political official, and the
Mm,
political official took the bribe, and then the political official covered up the bribe, and we'll just
yeah.
leave it at that. Okay, so
Okay.
like that stuff happens. So ultimately, people got indicted and people went to jail. So very stressful time for me in my life, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that had part of what kind of began the unwinding. Okay, it started in my 30s. I made it, the abuse stopped for me about age 14, and then I
That bit
made
that bit of stress was the droplet that
it
overflowed the
was
cup.
yeah. Well, yeah, because I was living, I had
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very life, and then you have to understand that when somebody starts threatening you that you're going to prison for the fact that you
yeah.
work there, that's stressful. Okay,
Hell
and I
fucking
knew
yeah.
I'd never done anything wrong. I knew that, but that doesn't mean that they won't scare the crap out of you
Of
and
course
make
not.
you, because I've seen the way government works, and let me tell you, it is not all what they think it looks like on the cop shows. Like I've
Oh,
seen the ugly side of the other side that we support with our money and our government, and
yeah.
it's not what people think. I'll just say that it's not. So in my 30s, I started having nightmares, and that's when things really started unraveling for me. And I was actually given, I started working out, and I injured my shoulder, and they gave me my first painkiller. Never had a painkiller in my life, and they gave me Oxycontin.
Ooh.
Okay, so I went straight to the heavy stuff because the surgery was the shoulder. Okay,
Yeah.
so within 3 days, I was addicted to that stuff. Addicted. And they sit there and say they're not addicted. I mean, give me a
Oh,
freaking break, man. I became a pill popping junkie
yeah, believe.
for most of my 30s and early 40s. And the pills were the coping mechanism.
And then what people don't understand, like, and this is me just you're opening up so much. I feel like I should. I've tried Oxy. That shit will give you the best sleep of your life.
Yeah,
You feel like you're
yeah,
you're cozy in
yeah.
God's hand.
You
But
yeah.
yet again, super addictive. Don't do it,
Mhm.
roomies. Don't even
Don't
fuck around.
don't do it.
Especially now with the whole
Run.
fentanyl shit.
Yes,
Don't
run. Do
don't
not.
even don't even try
Don't
it.
play with that stuff, man. I
Yep.
totally agree. That is literally what started my addiction, was that right
Yeah.
there. One prescription, that's all it took, and then I
Yeah.
became addicted because it was the only way I could sleep. Because if I took that magic little pill, I didn't have nightmares. Truth. So that's where I became an addict on the pills. So from the pills, I had a very stressful job, very high profile job, making a lot of money, a lot of demands, managing a lot of people, a lot of stress. And
Yeah.
it just kind of all came crashing down. I had a very difficult time with one of my daughters. She had seen that I had tried to kill myself on a text message, and she
Yeah.
was never supposed to see that text message, but she did. And she started making really poor choices because she figured if dad was checking out, she didn't need to be present either. So, unfortunately, the assholes that hurt me as a child have impacted my entire life and impacted my family
Yeah.
because my
But
girls,
I,
yeah, my girls ended
something like that causes ripple ripples through your
Oh,
whole life and everybody in there. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and what most people don't realize is, so I poured myself into neuroscience. Okay. I
Yeah.
left corporate America and I studied neuroscience. And neuroscience is how we fix the shit that we deal with as human beings. Okay.
Right.
It is neuroscience.
And then just for the roomies to know what is neuroscience, so the roomies know exactly what we're talking about.
Neuroscience. Okay. So neuroscience is basically the study of reprogramming your brain,
Okay.
right? So look at it this way. When you're a little kid and you do something and you screw something up, maybe you try. I'll use this as an example because this is a true story. Okay. My brother was a guy that could get on a bicycle and fix it, take it apart, put it back together. He could get on it, he could jump, he could do wheelies, he could do everything. Then came me. And I'm nothing like my brother. I mean, I nothing at all. And my dad, of course, tried to cookie cutter me to be like my brother.
Yeah.
And and I was a musician, right? I was born with music in my blood, man. I started rocking to the beat of music when I was 2 years old and it's never stopped. I'm still a musician to this day. So you put a musician on a bicycle, that's not always the same thing. You know what I mean?
No, it's not gonna
So
translate.
no. So my dad bought me a bicycle because my brother had a bike. So he got me a bike. And the first time I tried to jump off that ramp, okay, I landed funny. I ended up crashing. All the kids laughed at me. And so what did I do? I wrote the story that I'm not good at riding bicycles. I'll never ride a bicycle. Fuck the bicycles. That's what I said.
Fuck
Okay.
that.
Yeah. So from that day forward, I didn't give a shit about my bike. My brother was better on two wheels than me, and I gave it up. So when it came time to get a motorcycle, did I get a motorcycle? No. Why? Because it's got two wheels. And I wrote the story as a 6-year-old little boy that I couldn't ride a bicycle and I couldn't
Yeah.
jump. Okay. So our self-limiting beliefs come from our childhood. Had
Okay.
my father been there at that time when I crashed that bicycle and said, hey, you tried something new. You didn't do so well at it, but let's not give up. What really needs to happen is when you reach the end of that ramp, you got to pull up on these handlebars
Yeah.
and then you got to push a little harder here. Okay. Had somebody told me that, I would have wrote a different story. But I didn't get that story and I didn't get that feedback. What I got was laughter and humiliation.
Yeah.
So
You
I
got
wrote that story at age 6 that I would never ride anything on two wheels and I wasn't good enough to balance anything.
yeah,
And
because
that,
it's negative
yeah,
because at that event you had negative reinforcement. You didn't
that's
have
exactly correct.
yeah.
So it became a self-limiting belief. So my entire life, I've always liked things that go fast as long as they've got four wheels. I don't ride two wheels because I'm not good at it. So that's what I told myself. Okay, what else is in your childhood that we did not do correctly? How many times were you humiliated in trying something as a child? And when you humiliated, you wrote the wrong story because we all do it. We're children.
Yeah.
We don't have long term decision making until we're in our mid 20s. But yet you're expecting me to write the correct story when I'm 6? You see, that's where self limiting beliefs come from. So,
True.
how about being teased as a child because we're overweight? Okay, I was the fat kid, so people teased me for
Me
being
too.
the fat kid. Okay, and being the fat kid meant that people took shots at you, and it made you think that you were not as good as the skinny people. Right? You
That's a
wrote the
fact.
wrong story. Wrong story. So our childhoods and most of the crap that we incurred as children still exists today in your subconscious mind as self-limiting beliefs.
I
So,
believe it.
oh, 100%, dude.
I
That's
believe it. I
why,
believe that.
yeah, that's why I studied neuroscience because I had a fucked up brain. My brain was so screwed up and I had tried everything, man. Tried everything. Therapy, counselor here, counselor there, psychologist. I had 7 pill boxes to manage
Wow.
my day. 7.
That's
7.
wild. That's too
Yes.
much. That's
Yes,
way too much. That's way
yes.
too
And
much.
that is unfortunately what our system is built on. Okay.
Of course. Of
They don't want
course.
you to be healed. They want you to be hooked on their drugs so that you'll pay them.
Of course, because there's no profit in the cure, but
That's
there's
correct.
profit in
That
maintaining.
is correct.
Like for
That
like I'll give you the simplest example, and this is because it comes with like my family has a history of diabetes. How
okay.
long has diabetes plagued everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just people of color,
Yeah.
but everybody. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And we
come
can't
on,
find
get
a
like
cure for it.
fuck it, give the cure out. Like it's about time. Like, come on.
There are cures. There are many cures for things, but
Yeah,
they don't want us to know that. Okay. They'd rather us keep buying their drugs. I will
of
tell you
course.
this right now. Okay. So, so along, like my story's crazy, dude. I don't know how much time we have. You'll probably be like, Thane, you need to come back. Okay. Um, I, and the reason I say that is because it's like I've been through some shit, man, but
Nah, I
I've
believe
learned
it, man.
I learned some things, right? We haven't even talked about my near death experience. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, maybe, but we're gonna touch briefly on that. But let us know what you learned, Thing.
Well, okay. So I tried to outrun my trauma. I got help as much as
Yeah.
I could. I'm a multiple. I'm married to a woman with a family, and I'm also traveling extensively. So I have multiple lives. I'm literally living in multiple lives. That
So you
is
were
the
Dominican.
I was what?
So you were Dominican.
It's cutting out, so I didn't hear the word that you said.
Oh, I said so you're Dominican, like
Yeah,
from the Dominican
essentially.
Republic,
Yeah,
because
essentially.
we're known
Yeah,
to have multiple lives and shit. Yeah.
yeah, very similar. So I actually, yeah, dude, my life was hell. Like that's why I attempted suicide because I couldn't be the husband and the corporate
Yeah.
leader and everything that I had propped up
Yeah.
when inside I was broken. I mean, I would leave a corporate meeting where I was just on stage in front of thousands of people, and then I would go back to my hotel room and literally hide under the bed because I felt safe there under the
No,
bed. So I had
I
a bed
get
up
that
above, but I
100%.
would sleep underneath it.
No, I
So
get that, man.
that's the kind of stuff that happens, when you traumatize kids. We carry it our whole lives, okay? So I tried everything, man, and I'll tell you this, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for two people. The first one is my wife, Joy, the most amazing woman on the planet that loved me through absolute madness, that had every reason to kick me to the curb, but she never did. Why? Because she knew deep down that I loved her more than anything in the world. She knew that. But she didn't know at the time that I was struggling with some very severe mental conditions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a suicide attempt in my late 30s, early 40s that my wife even knew what had happened to me. Like my parents did not know what happened to me until about age 40. That is when I finally, because it was a suicide attempt and I had to get help because everybody knew I wasn't going to make it. I tried to
Yeah.
overdose and a friend saved me. Okay. So that's when I started therapy. So my first therapist would be the second person that I would say saved my life because I had no way to recover what had happened to me. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you who had abused me, when it started, or why. I couldn't tell you any of that. But I knew there was darkness there, and I was angry, and I was pissed off. You messed with me, and I'd rip you a new one, I'd gut you, and yeah, not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not kind. Okay. So I knew I had to get help. And after that last suicide attempt, and I had little girls, that's when I started working in therapy and I started working with a therapist and I worked with her almost 5 years actually. And
Yeah.
we used a protocol called EMDR. And that was what we were able to tap into my subconscious mind. And we found the memory of July 4th, 1976, when I went to pick up the money for that bottle of honey.
Oh,
That's
man.
when everything went to hell for me. But that started, I didn't even have that memory unless that therapist would have been working with me using this protocol called EMDR.
And was
So
EMDR?
EMDR, it's a protocol they use that therapists use where they manipulate your eyes And then when they stop, they ask you what's the first thing that comes to mind. And it's a way of pulling information out of our subconscious memories. And that's what it does. It's a protocol. And when you recall the memory and then you reprocess the memory, you put it away in a safe space. Okay. Because that's what PTSD is a person that experienced a very, very strong emotion. It was so strong that they weren't able to finish processing it. So they literally split the memory and the body never finished it as over. So that's why PTSD is based upon triggers, because when I would see a trigger, my brain would go, oh, that's happening right now, you see? And then the body would give the response and then my brain would act on it. That's what PTSD is. So in order to fix PTSD, you have to recall the event that's causing the trigger and you have to reprocess it and basically create a new safe memory around the trigger. And the therapist is working with you the whole time to make sure that you understand that you're safe. So that memory that surfaced that was horrific is now something that I can look at and think about, and it doesn't cause me as much as alarm as it did the first time I remembered it. So over time, by talking about these traumas in therapy, they become less damaging to your day.
Okay.
All right. So I was getting professional help. I also had a ton of psychologists giving me and doctors giving me every pill. So like I said, the worst of it, and this is what happens to many people when they struggle with mental health, is they're given a pill and then they get another pill and then they're given another pill. And the next thing you know, you're strung out on every SSRI, every antipsychotic, everything you can possibly think. And it's done with good intention. I don't want anybody to think that doctors don't have good intentions. They do. But the problem with mental health is this. It's in the mind. And if you give drugs, all you're doing is masking the symptoms, because the core pain, the abuse, the addiction, it's still there. And that's why
100%.
That is correct. So that's why when you start on that path, okay, like they did with me, they medicated me. Give Thayne meds so that he's less explosive. Give him meds so that he doesn't so that he's not as emotional. Give him meds.
Basically, instead of trying to go through the trauma and kind of help you through it, they rather have sedated you.
Correct. That's it right there. They turn you into a vegetable, and then you think clearly. So eventually, my therapist kind of saw what was going on, because therapists don't write prescriptions. But she started suspecting that I was being over medicated. She started to suspect that. So we did a week-long boot camp, and she took me off with the help of doctors, by the way. We got off most of the medicine so that we could do a week's worth of very, very intensive processing in order for me to be able to move the needle. But I had to be off the psychiatrics. And so that was a big move for me, and that helped me a lot, and that got rid of many pill boxes. So I'm grateful to that therapist for recognizing that I was being over medicated by my physicians. That's true. So she served an important role. So my whole life, dude, I tried to, outrun everything. Nobody knew. I was always very successful and very good at acting. Very good at acting. When you have DID, you become very good at acting.
I believe it.
You would switch. Like if you and I were talking right now, and let's say you did something or something entered the field behind you that triggered me, and I switched in the middle of the conversation, you wouldn't know it, but you might catch it, because I would usually, what would happen when I would switch, I would change the conversation. So I did that a lot with people, because that was the only way that I could have a conversation, is I needed to start over. So I had a habit of doing that with people when they were talking to me, and I would switch. I would suddenly start a new conversation right in the middle of where we left off. And people would say that it was rude. I wasn't being rude. I was literally trying to control the situation, because I don't know who you are and I don't know what we were just talking about. That's what was happening. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
That
real
is
stuff. Real stuff.
that's real
So
shit.
if I talked with you long enough, maybe 10, 15 minutes in, I might remember who you are and I might switch back. That's also
Okay.
possible. Okay.
That's crazy,
So
bro.
I had all these coping mechanisms that allowed this disorder that I had to be masked because I was very gifted when it came to conversation. I could out talk and get my way out of any situation. And I was in sales. So I was constantly talking to people.
Yeah.
It was very easy. And I lived on the road. So for 15 years, 4 nights a week, I was on a plane or in a hotel somewhere. So that's also what allowed me to live as a multiple because I wasn't always home. I was only home Saturday and Sunday and sometimes Friday.
Wow.
So when I was in San Diego, I lived as a gay man in San Diego. Okay. When I was in
So,
Seattle, different man, worked in Seattle, you see? So I literally had different lives in the cities that I worked in. And I had
so
and
th-
network and everything.
that that is a wild journey, man. That is wild.
I know.
Just the simple fact that it took until you were 40 for like your
Yeah.
parents to find out and most people to find out.
Yep. I
That
hit
is a weight that you carried your whole life that must
my
have
whole
been
life.
insane.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I just can't imagine going that long. Like I haven't reached 40 yet, and I'm just like, bro,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to carry that weight the 36 years I've been on this planet. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah. So here's part of that challenge though. You got to think about the reality, okay?
Yeah.
So 1 in 6 boys are abused before age 18. 1 in 6, okay? And in girls, it's 1 in 4. So 1 in 4 girls are going to be sexually abused, raped, molested before age 18, and 1 in 6 boys. But the problem is that there's no help for boys. There's no
Yeah.
help for men because boys don't talk about it. I didn't talk about it. Why do you think they
Yeah.
chose me? Because they knew I wouldn't say a dang word because I was so humiliated by it. And the thought of telling my dad, hell no, no way,
Yeah.
especially if you've got pictures and they're stronger than me. They were manipulating me as a child, telling me that I did this. This was my fault. You see? Oh, and if you tell, you're going to be taken away from your family. You're going to lose your family. So you can't tell anybody. And I didn't want to lose my family. I loved my
Of
brother,
course
my
not.
sister, my mom and dad. So what did I do? I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet. And then I tried to outrun it. I never wanted anybody to know. If you talk to anybody that was sexually abused as a child, especially if you're a boy, you don't talk about it. You don't tell anybody because you're so full of shame and so full of fear of what people would think about you. Okay. And then you have people going, oh, well, he was sexually abused. He must be gay. You know how many
Yeah.
times I heard that, like growing up, when, oh, well, he's afraid of men. He must be gay. Well, no, I was being
Like
abused by men. Why the
you
hell
don't
was
know like
I and you don't know my story, but thanks for judging me, asshole.
that
Okay?
ass. Like that's something I never understood. Like like I get like the whole I don't know how to say this properly, so I'm gonna just say it. Like
Yeah,
I get the whole being tough as a man and pride and your manhood and
yeah,
trying to be a masculine
yeah,
dude and all this other shit. But the one thing I've never understood was like the lack of help when it comes to like little boys. You feel
yeah,
me? It's like you can't judge a 21-year-old versus a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? Like a 21-year-old could defend himself and knows
yeah,
right from wrong. A 6-year-old doesn't, and then it's like that 6-year-old, that 8-year-old, that 5-year-old. How you expect them to carry that? And
yeah,
it's not the same. It's not they don't show the same. I don't want to say how would I say it? They don't show the same mercy or grace to like
right.
a little boy versus a little girl. And I'm not saying
Yeah, no,
a
you're
little,
right.
no, no.
Well,
But
well,
what I'm
it's
saying is that
masculinity, isn't it?
yeah,
It's toxic masculinity because we teach our kids Like little boys are not. No, how many times did your father say, "Quit crying, man up"?
Yeah.
Right? That came from that generation. Man up. What are you crying for? Right? Do you know how many times that I would be crying because I had just been abused, and I'm coming across the street, and I'm coming home, and my dad's had a rough day, and my dad is mad that I'm crying, and then he yells at me and says, "I'll give you a reason to cry," and he didn't know why I was crying.
Yeah.
That I mean, I'm not gonna point fingers at my dad or my mother. I will say
Yeah.
this:
Yeah. Definitely not.
my parents are lovely, and I'm so thankful that I was born into that family, and that my dad is my dad and my mom is my mom. I'm grateful for
I
that.
feel it.
And they did
I
the
feel it.
best that they could, okay? And trust me, when my dad and my mom found out what happened to me, my dad wept. My dad has only cried twice in my life. The first one was when his father passed away. The second one was when I was sitting at my piano, which is my best friend, and I
Yep.
told my mother and my father what happened to me. And we literally sat at that piano and we wept. They had no idea.
Yep.
Now, my mother can look back and she can see all of it because I was a very emotional kid and I was a roller coaster. I was explosive. They could never figure out why. Now my mom knows why. Sadly, my mom has Alzheimer's today. She's still with us, but
Yeah.
she's not cognitive anymore. So I can't have a conversation with her. But I'm very fortunate. I give thank you to God for putting me in an amazing family. My family and my father and my mother and my brother and my sister, no doubt, I would not be where I'm at was it not for the love that they showed and the constant support that they showed me,
Yeah.
even when I wasn't deserving of it. That's also true. So most of my life, I lived a victim, and
Yeah.
I tried to heal myself. I went through traditional therapy. I got over medicated, and then there was a near death experience. Okay, I was given some medication
Okay.
that I should have never have been given. And we know that now
Mm,
because we did a gene site report, and the one drug you should never give me was labeled at the top of that report. Do not give this man this drug. And they not only gave me that drug, they gave me an adult dosage. And we have
oh
since
no.
learned that I'm a slow metabolizer. And what that means is that I need less than a child's dose. So my entire life, I've been given medication that is over medicated, which I've said my
Yeah.
entire life, and nobody will listen to you because the doctors don't listen. They
They
don't
don't.
listen. That's one of my biggest bitches, okay, with our medical community is they don't listen. And they're
Because
actually many of
they
them in
don't
the
take
pockets of the big drug companies. Let's be real here. You want to keep it
that out.
candid?
And then on top of that, they're not depending on who you are and what doctor you go to, they're not really sitting there and taking their time with their patients anyways. Like
No.
I've gotten a physical done in like 15 minutes. So I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm perfectly
Yeah.
fine. You don't
Yeah.
want to check anything else? Like, you sure?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Well, and then you go into the therapy community. And I'm not saying that they're all like this, but there are some therapists that see you as nothing more than business. So do
Yeah.
they really want to heal you? Or do they want to keep you coming back every month and paying them their $180? How many people
Mm,
go into therapy with the idea that I'm going to be cured? Pretty much every single one of us.
yeah.
How many people come out from therapy cured? Not very many.
Mm,
Interesting, right? Now, I have to be careful. I have a member of my family that is a very, very talented therapist, and I respect her and everything that she does. And there's a ton. In fact, she's probably the only therapist I know that heals patients. Okay.
okay.
She will heal you and then send you on your way. She's not interested in having you come back as a repeat customer. She is one of the few therapists that I know that actually follows that.
And that's what I think all healing should be. It should be a one. Well, the except for like therapy, sometimes you need multiple
Sometimes,
sessions, and you need
yeah,
time with that.
that makes sense. But is there not a
But
point though where you
yeah,
stop it? Okay, and
you have to stop at some point. Like at what
okay,
point?
I will give you a perfect example of this. So when I was in therapy,
Yeah,
working with my therapist, and we're going backwards in time using memories, trying to help me figure out everything that had happened to me. All right. Well, by the time I reached my 50th pedophile, I said to the therapist, when does this end? Okay. Because I've been abused by more than 50 people. I know that. So are we going to do this for 15 years? Or can I just say enough's enough and lump it all together and say, I got to put all this behind me? Because I felt like my therapist was dragging it out. And I don't mean that she was doing it for money. I know her and that wasn't her intention. But you reach a point where you have to stop. And you got to realize that unfortunately, to some people, you're a paycheck. Okay. And here's where you really want to get me going is because I'm in the business today. I had a near-death experience. I drowned in my swimming pool. Okay. I died and I went to the other side and I have a very, very vivid NDE. I remember everything that happened. I remember who I met, everything. Okay. And
talk to me about it. Let me know.
Oh, dude, that's a whole nother podcast.
All right. Oh, Dan, you teasing us with that, man. But
I'll give you a little bit. I'll give you a little bit. Okay. Here's what it is.
Give us the cliff notes. Give us the cliff notes.
All right. Well, ask me any question. I'll give you an answer. What do you want to know?
Right, so when you crossed over, right? Because I know we had our private conversation referring to this as well, right? Yep. When you crossed over and you came back, you said you came back a little different. And you know, you activated some abilities.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that, and that's how we're gonna tease the roomies for part 2 of this, because we definitely need to talk about that.
Well, part 2. Okay. So I want you to understand one thing. I went into the pool as a multiple. Okay. I went into the pool with 10 personalities, PTSD, bipolar, all of those things. I came out of the pool with one personality. One. When I came out of the water and I made my way over to the side, there's a whole story there and we'll skip it for now. But when I came to, I wasn't able to move my body. My spirit was back in my body, but my body was not cooperating. So I couldn't swim like you would think a person could swim. So I managed to make it over to a side of my pool where I could lay on a shallow shelf that my grandkids play on. And I laid there long enough for me to kind of allow my spirit to get back into my body. And the entire time I was there, I was staring at the stars and the moon and it was nighttime. And I was fascinated by the cosmos. Okay. Now, my first near-death experience actually happened as a child. Different part of the story. I was abused to the point where they suffocated me. And they brought me back to life by putting me in an ice chest, which was basically a bathtub. Okay. Yeah. So my first NDE actually happened then as a child because I ended up leaving my body as a child and I was in the arms of my grandfather who had died 2 years prior. And my grandfather was on the other side and held me while I was being abused. That was my first NDE. And my grandfather said that you don't belong here, that you have a life to live and you have to go back. And so I didn't want to go back because what you have on the other side is nothing but love. It's love more like you don't even understand love like we do. We don't understand love like it is here. It's not the same. On the other side, it's surreal. You cannot we call it love because that's what human beings want to call it, but it's more intense than that. I'll tell you that. Okay. So I wanted to stay. And my grandpa was like, no, you can't stay. You have to go back. And so literally he pushed me back into my body and I went back into my body. That was when I was a child. Yeah. So when I woke up at the bottom of the pool, okay, because I literally drowned. I woke up at the bottom of the pool and I had water in my lungs and I couldn't move and I knew I was underwater. That's literally when I woke up. So how did I get out of water? That's a whole nother story. Like, I don't know what to tell you because I know we're like, I don't like.
Listen, for part 2, leave it for part 2. Leave it for part 2.
Part two.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. All right. Let me back up. I want to tell you why. Okay. So here's the most important thing. Everything that you think happened to you, that you want to place blame and shame on, that's bullshit. Okay. And if you're angry at God and you're angry at life and you're angry at this and angry at that, you have a right to be angry because life
Yeah.
can be very, very difficult. It can be. But here's the honest truth. And I learned this on the other side. And that is this, that the worst things that happen to us are the best possible outcome. Because if the creator upstairs was not protecting us and you in the way that they do, you would have died or it would have been far worse. So my entire life, up until I drowned in that pool and met my creator, I was a victim. I showed up as a victim and I took it out on everybody around me because I never got help. I tried, did the best I could. I was good to my family and friends, but outside of that, I wasn't a good person, not like I should have been. Okay.
I feel you, man.
Yeah. And I made some tough choices. I was addicted to prescription drugs. I was popping pills to get up, pills to put me down, pills in the middle of the day. And that's how I managed. And how I functioned, I'm really not sure. If you interviewed my wife and my family, they'll be like, oh, it was a much bigger shit show than my dad is telling you.
I believe
They would
it. I
tell you
believe it.
that. Yeah. My daughters really have some good stories, let me tell you. Well, yeah, and it gets even weirder, right? Because so I was married to a beautiful woman and have a family, but then I'm also splitting and I have multiple identities and some of them are gay. So
Yeah.
my kids were meeting alters that were gay and they were my gay friends and my family had to adapt to the fact that dad sometimes had gay friends come over to the house. Like it was a weird life. It was weird, okay? And it was
Yeah.
also beautiful. It was also beautiful because I will say this about my, I am 100% straight today. Like when my brain reintegrated, all of that
Yeah.
went away, which is interesting because I understand, like, if you're going to ask me about, well, are you born gay or are you made gay? Because a lot of people want to know the answer to that question. Do you want to know the answer to that question?
To me, it really doesn't matter. Like if you're gay, you're gay. To me, whatever. I live
You
by.
don't care. You don't
No,
care.
and I'll give you a brief story about that as well.
Okay.
First and foremost, I went to all boys Catholic high school.
Okay.
So had gay classmates and I have gay friends, so that's not
Yep.
a problem. But I think what made me so accepting of it was because of the fact that I had New York apartments. I live on the
Mhm.
4th floor. I had a downstairs neighbor. Her son was gay, and he was best friends with my cousins,
Mhm.
who were my primary babysitters. 90s. So you
Yep.
had a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old rolling around with a baby, and their gay best friend.
Yep.
So I grew up with that in my life, and then on top of that, I've always been accepting of it because I never understood hate that way. You know what I mean?
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Like
Good for
I
you. Sounds like
understood.
you're a parent.
Yeah. I personally don't care. Whatever. Like, listen, love who you want to love, fuck who you
That's
want
where
to
I'm
fuck,
at.
marry
Yeah.
who you want to marry. Whatever
Yeah.
you do in your bedroom, that's your business.
That's right.
Straight up.
And that's the way it should be. And that's exactly how God sees it, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
I believe
exactly
it.
how God sees it. So,
I believe it.
so in my case, so some people are born gay and it's part of their life experience. It's
Yeah.
just it's a variation in the soul's experience. Okay? So some people are born gay. They are.
Yeah.
There are some people that due to environmental circumstances they gravitate and they become homosexual. They
Yeah.
become that way. In my case, I wasn't born that way, but being traumatized and introduced to sexuality as a young boy by other boys
Man.
and other men, okay, you can understand how that would be confusing for me growing up. I should never have been exposed to that ever.
Never.
Not as a child, for
Never.
sure, not as a child. Okay.
Definitely not.
So the reason I throw that out there because it's one of those things. I've lived as a straight man and I've lived as a gay man. and both are difficult. Don't kid yourself. It's hard being a straight man today. It's hard being a gay man. It's hard
Yeah.
being a man.
It's just
It's
hard.
hard being a man, right? I mean,
Dead
let's be
ass.
real. Like the expectations that are put on us, like to provide, get out there and work, provide. I mean, come on. There's like, oh yeah, don't even get me started down that one. Anyway, so I after my NDE, everything changed for me.
Yeah,
Everything changed
I
because
believe that.
I met the creator. Like, I understand things that most people cannot even comprehend. And some of the things that I know are controversial, and I know that. And it scares me sometimes to know what I know, but it is what it is. And I said when I started talking about this, I was going to speak the truth, no matter if it pissed people off or not. So I speak the truth.
And
Okay.
roomies, get ready for part 2 because my dude Than's gonna speak a whole bunch of truths. And Than, before we let go of the roomies, do you have any final thoughts, messages, words of wisdom?
On that first episode, get out there and
Yeah,
crush it. Get out there and crush it and let go of your shit. Okay. Life is about being abundantly happy. And you can find abundant happiness. And if you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with mental health, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with feeling that you're not enough, okay, that is bullshit. You are plenty just the way you are. And you need to know that the thing upstairs loves you just the way you are. And even when you fuck up and you make mistakes, the thing upstairs still loves you just the way you are. Okay?
bow.
Yes, you are loved exactly as you are. Exactly as you are. You are always enough. Always. And don't
Oh,
fucking
take
forget
that.
that. Amen.
and,
There,
and
how was
roomies, remember. And roomies, remember, even though you go through the darkest times, dark times make the brightest stars. And with that, peace out.